counting internal costs, you know. I mean, it's just ridiculous. So, anyway, okay.
And you are living
His is better. He just spoke.
Are you not going to speak? Just your wife?
Yes, yes.
Very nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you. Eh? You are in the Netherlands? No. I once yes, when you introduced
experience, I did not agree with you entirely on, but you were there at a somewhat different time than I was there. You were there in the late 50s. I was there in the...
There was a tremendous friction.
For sure that if any diamond of fame would be it, then it would be him. You know, I'm so glad you cleared it.
but they would both be quiet.
Yeah.
On different grounds.
Okay.
Thank you.
Вы в Ассанийском форуме 4.
Привет, Казгу. Мы первое место заняли.
Привет,
студенты нашей команды.
Да?
Команда, да, студенты.
Поздравляю.
Виртуальный неден. Олимпиада.
Поздравляю.
I have very good, always had very good contacts with my Polish colleagues. I'm ambassador from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
The organizers entrusted me to be a ruthless chairperson. So if I am going to be kind of tough, you should know I'm only doing my job. So, the subject of the panel today is the dollar era. That's a big open-ended subject, because there is no question mark or exclamation mark. Of course, the program does list some issues that might be of interest to anyone who looks at it. So the first question is the future of the US dollar. It's interesting, because the very fact that we are asking such a question means that there is a question. And maybe this is part of the answer. There is a question. And if there is a question, then the answer probably will say it depends. But your grade doesn't yes or no, but you need to explain. So what are the factors that really will? Years ago, when the main currency of the world was sterling, we could have asked that question also, the future of sterling. Over history rose and declined. And what were the factors that explained it? You all remember the period of the Vietnam War when US inflation accelerated and suddenly questions were asked, the future of the dollar. So our panelists will need to spend a few seconds in answering the future of the dollar. But then one of the issues that will come up is compared with what? Because, you know, how can you unstring as a king unless you have a prince to stand in line? So what the question is saying, is the euro an alternative? And is the euro likely to be one? To remind you, today the euro is close to all-time high. About a year ago or less, it was low, it was very, very low. Are we only talking about volatility? what bothered Mundell this afternoon, or are we talking about fundamentals? So we would like to see that. Monetary policy. We have an unprecedented situation where monetary policy all over the world has been very, very expensive. Interest rates were driven close to zero. But now Europe started its way to raise interest rates. China has started its way of tightening. The US is still not there. What kind of implications this has on the question? So in a way, I just paraphrased all the questions that are in your program. Future of the dollar, monetary policy, euro, is China an alternative? And with this, I can sit down because we have a very, very distinguished group of participants. We have Richard Cooper, who is professor of economics at Harvard University, and has basically written on all of these questions over more than a generation. And if you define generation formally, much more than a generation, almost two of them. We have with us also Domenico Cavallo, who is now the chairman of DFC Associates LLC, but has been the legendary minister of the economy of Argentina, whose answer to this question was very clear. If you really want to introduce stability, then make sure that you control the printing press, or in fact maybe eliminate it if so needed. We are joining you in this particular session. So, and one of our participants decided that it would be unfair to take 2.5 minutes from the other three, so he decided that he cannot come. So we now have an hour altogether for the presentations and for the discussion, and I will immediately give the floor to Richard Cooper. Richard, who knows to not only keep time, but also to address all the questions that are being asked, plus additional notes. Please.
Thank you. I am just going to start out by following the list of the 4 questions that were posed to this panel, so you can follow my responses. They're meant to track these 4 questions. First concerns the future of the dollar. My view is that the dollar is an unconditional forecast. The dollar will remain the leading currency of the world for several decades. It has 2 outstanding advantages. One is what economists call network externalities. Its usefulness depends in large part on the fact that other people use it, and that's a self-reinforcing characteristic. It's a little bit like the use of English. I notice that English is the common language, although dozens of countries are represented here. If we actually chose a language to be the lingua franca of the world, it wouldn't be English. In many ways, it's a terrible language, but for historical reasons, it is English. And once people learn English, they don't want to have to learn another language, and so we can communicate across national boundaries. The dollar has something of the same feature. It's widely used, and the fact that it's widely used reinforces its widely use. The second outstanding advantage, not for you and me, but for institutions, oil firms, central banks, is that the U.S. financial market is very large and very liquid, so that one can engage in large transactions without having to influence, without influencing the market prices. So for both of those reasons, I think the dollar is going to be around for a long time. Now the euro, turn to the second question, is a possible alternative now, although as we've discovered in the last year, there is actually no market in euro securities. There's a market in euros, a foreign exchange market, but not in euro securities. It's a highly fragmented market. There are German bonds, there are French bonds, there are Italian bonds, there are Greek bonds. And so the liquidity of the European securities market is at scale is much, much lower than it is in the case of the United States.